The United States is the world-leading GM nation, both in the terms of the area under cultivation and the public acceptance of transgenic food. GM crops are everywhere, making up to 40% of the country's maize, 81% of the soybeans, 61% of canola, and 73% of cotton. And those numbers are still growing. GM crops are widely used in foods for both humans and animals, none of which need to be labelled as transgenic. The situation is similar in Canada, where GM corn, soybeans and canola are widely grown, but concern is building about the next target for the giant Monsanto, which is applying to both the US and Canadian governments for permission to market GM wheat. Canadian farmers fear that the introduction of transgenic varieties could destroy their foreign markets, particularly in Japan, where GM products aren't welcomed by consumers.
I'm David Askew from the Vancouver chapter of the Council of Canadians. We're here this evening to hear from Percy Schmeiser, a farmer from near Bruno, Saskatchewan, which is east of Saskatoon. Percy is involved in a struggle with the agrochemical company Monsanto over their allegations that he was in violation of their patent on genetically engineered canola. Percy's story and the issues that are raised by the legal battles that he's involved in, I don't think it's any stretch of the imagination to say that they affect all of us, not only all of us here, but people all around the world. And I'm sure you're going to find what he has to say very interesting, and that we'll also have an interesting discussion after his presentation. This presentation came about because Percy spoke at the Council of Canadians annual meeting in October, and a number of us from the Lower Mainland chapters were there, and we heard what he had to say, and we thought the issues were so important that we would like to provide an opportunity for more people in Vancouver to hear Percy, and also we wanted to provide an opportunity for all of us to find a way to support him in his efforts. So that was sort of the basis upon which we began to organize.
Percy Schmeiser was born near Saskatchewan, where he now farms. His grandparents immigrated from Europe to the United States in the late 1890s and later moved to Canada. His grandparents homesteaded the land he now farms, which he has been doing continuously since 1947. His main crop for over 50 years was canola. Percy is known throughout his community as a seed developer and a seed saver. He has always saved his own seed for planting in subsequent years. Percy and his wife Louise have been married for over 50 years. They have 5 children and 15 grandchildren. Percy has become a beacon and a lightning rod for the fight to retain the right to farm without the unwanted contamination of genetically engineered seeds.
I think I'd like to start off by this. What I'm going to say tonight, I hope I can leave a message, not what can happen or may happen, but what has happened not only in Canada, but on the Northern Plains and other parts of the U.S., with the introduction of GMOs, genetic engineering, in 1996, when regulatory approval was given by the Canadian government and also by the American government.
What Fox Television told us was that we were just the people to be the investigators.
Do any stories you want, ask tough questions, and get answers. So we thought, this is great. This is a dream job. Fantastic. The very first thing they had us do was not to research stories, but to shoot this promo, which was The Investigators.
Uncovering the truth, getting results, protecting you.
And they had a film crew and a smoke machine, and we were silhouetted.
Investigative reporter Steve.
One of the first stories that Jane came up with was the revelation that most of the milk in the state of Florida and throughout much of the country was adulterated with the effects of bovine growth hormone, the artificial hormone that farmers were injecting into their cows so that they would produce more milk.
With Monsanto, I didn't realize how effectively a corporation could work to get something on the marketplace. The levels of coordination they had to have. They had to get university professors into the fold. They had to get experts into the fold. They had to get reporters into the fold. They had to get the public into the fold. And of course the FDA, let's not leave them out. They had to get the federal regulators convinced that this was a fine and safe product to get it onto the marketplace. And they did that. They did that very, very well.
It's a great time to be a high-producing cow. Posilac One Step, bovine somatotropin by Monsanto.
The federal government basically rubber-stamped it before they put it on the marketplace. The longest test they did for human toxicity was 90 days on 30 rats.
Posilac is the single most tested new product in history and is now available to you specifically so you can increase your profit potential.
And then either Monsanto misreported the results to the FDA, or the FDA didn't bother to look in depth at Monsanto's own studies.
The scientists within Health Canada looked very carefully at bovine growth hormone and came to very different conclusions than the Food and Drug Administration in the U.S. did.
Monsanto's engineered growth hormone did not comply with safety requirements. It could be absorbed by the body and therefore did have implications for human health. Mysteriously, that conclusion was deleted from the final published version of their report.
They knew there were problems. They saw serious potential human health problems, and they stood up in Canada and said, we're not going to approve this because we don't believe it's safe.
We have been pressured and coerced to pass drugs of questionable safety, including the RBST. I personally was very concerned that there's a very serious problem of secrecy, conspiracy, and things of that nature, and something needs to be done.
The FDA was then on the hot seat. They had to come up with an answer. They didn't come up with a good one. And they never took the opportunity then. I mean, what would they do? Pull it off the market and say, we need to now do the job that we didn't do the first time? They didn't do that.
We wrote the story. We had it ready a week beforehand. They bought ads.
Farmers in the milk industry say it's safe, but studies suggest a link to cancer. Don't miss this special report from the investigators.
That Friday night before the Monday this series was to begin, the fax machine spit out a letter from this very high-priced lawyer in New York that Monsanto had hired. It contained a lot of things that were just off-the-wall false, just demonstrably false. But if you didn't know the story and you didn't know how we had gone about producing it, would have scared you as a broadcaster, as a manager.
And they decided that they would pull the story and they would just check it one more time.
But the bottom line was that there was no factual errors in that story. Both sides had been heard from. Both sides had had an opportunity to speak.
1 week later, Monsanto sent the second letter. And this was even more strongly worded. And it said there will be dire consequences for Fox News if the story airs in Florida. And this time they freaked. They were afraid of being sued, and they were also afraid of losing advertising dollars at all of the stations owned by Rupert Murdoch. And he owned more television stations than any other group in America. And that's 22 television stations. That's a lot of advertising dollars for Roundup, aspartame, NutraSweet, and other products.